Hi everyone. Well, I welcome you all to this session of Verbal. My name is Namita Mam, and today I will be taking you through one of the very important segment of Verbal, which is your idiom and phrases. I would say important. Also, I would say one of the very basic one, which we all are aware of what idioms are, what phrases are, how and what sort of questions are there, what our strategy has to be to deal with them, and then I'll take you through some of the idioms. The technique, as though there's not a one particular technique I can teach you through that. Okay, this is the way how you have to take it forward. But yes, I'll take you through some of the important idiom and phrases and your way of dealing with it. And the plus point to that would be all the idiom and phrases that we will be studying today would be very nicely in the form of animations, colorful, just to give you an idea of they are not difficult, they are just easy to crack. And also, do take your time. It will be in the form of like you have to give your answer first. Of course, I'm there to help you and explain you everything, but then efforts have to be from your side also. There would be question. You will take your time. You will read it, and then you are going to give me answer of the question which will be there on the screen. Chalo, so let's get started without further much delay. Now, so basically, what idiom and phrases are? It is not like the typical black and white one. So it is basically the linguistic field, right? Decoding, that it just decodes the hidden language of the idiom and phrases which are there in the competitive exam. So this is today we will be mastering idiom and phrases, right? Now, so basically what idioms and phrases are. So they are just, if I were to go for the definition of it, it is just a phrase or grammatical construction that cannot be translated literally because its meaning is not equivalent to that of its component words. That is why they become idioms. As in, of course, there is line given. When we read it, we think of something else, but when we go for the meaning is something else. Now, I will quickly give you one example of that. Let's say, if I talk about the input, let's read in the form of this shape. Let's say, if the literal meaning, the idiom that I gave you is a bird in hand, right? So this is the input. Now, what is the outcome as in the answer of that? So the figurative meaning is you're certainly over risk. That is the medium or the answer of it. Or if I say, you probably must have heard about an idiom that says, it is all Greek to me. Now, it is all Greek to me. If I were to tell you beta pado and then tell me what is the translation or what is the meaning you are able to understand from this word, probably you would think, ma'am, Greek you are talking about, Greek civilization, Greek mythology, that always fascinates us. So probably it would be something, it's all Greek to me, it would be very fascinating to me. But then comes a twist. It is not. The real meaning of it's all Greek to me is that it is incomprehensible. Whatever is written, I am unable to understand it. That is, it's all Greek to me. So, what is written and the meaning of the word are not similar. That goes for the explanation of the idioms. Sometimes it would be very similar to what is given. Sometimes it would not be similar to what is given. Now, this was one where we are not able to get an idea what Greek would be related. But if I take an idiom as I am able to smell a rat. Now, when I say I'm able to smell a rat, I probably am trying to say that there is what happens if a rat dies in the room, at home. There's a sort of like pungent and a very bad smell we all are able to hear. So that dying of the rat is related to that smell. Bad. So you start detecting where that smell is coming from, what has happened, what is wrong. So that suspicion that something is wrong, that feeling goes for to smell a rat. You're being skeptical about things, about people, about situations. So sometimes the meaning would be exactly similar. Sometimes it would be very different from what is being given to you. Now, so it is like key insight if I were to give you for that should be that there is seldom pure logic behind idioms. There are linguistic puzzles that must be judged by the ear. So when you hear them. Like also, let's see. So it's like how and what yours should be. So it's focus, memorization, energy only. Like you see, there are some I was talking about. Now some you can infer, some you cannot. Like transparent. If I talk about make up one's mind. So often you say, "Oh, I really have make up my mind." So make up one's mind would be to reach a destination or a decision. I have made up my mind for that. I have made a decision for that. Very transparent. You could have easily guessed the meaning. But if I go for kick the bucket, very interesting one. Now, whenever there's an idiom called as kick the bucket, so literally, even if you try to relate, you're not just simply kicking the bucket, but kick the bucket meaning is to die. Now imagine if you're going to somebody's funeral or any place and you wish to ask how that person has died. You can use then there the idiom called as kick the bucket. But it will change the whole scenario over there. People will be like, what is he talking about? So kick the bucket is nowhere related to what is written and what is the meaning. So be clear with that approach. There is not a definite technique or a trick I can tell you that, Bacha, if you read this, you are good to go for idioms. Rather, there has to be sense, common sense that we have to apply, some logics, some places where the interpretation is quite obvious, things where the interpretation is not literally obvious, we have to learn them, do the rot learning. Right, so that is what we say. It is similarly, some can be deduced and opaque idioms can be learned. So this is we have to learn and this is we already learn. Right, so this is all about how basically they are. Also, there is one very good thing with idioms that idioms do not require much time. I will tell you. See, any exam you give or any exam you appear in, it's a for sure fact that you are going to get questions from the idioms and phrases. Now, one thing that you have to have in mind that idioms and phrases are basically something that take very less time. Any question you do of the error detection, of the RC, of the parajumbles, parafillers, anything you do, it takes time. At least 2-3 minutes of yours. But when it's about the idioms, you read it, either you know or you do not know. There's no calculation needed. There is no reasoning needed for that. So idiom is basically that part which you can do just in a span, in like a few seconds, I would say. And there are 4 to 5 questions, which of course have a lot of weightage also. Now, so many questions do not take more than half a minute. That is what I said. Also, you either know it or you do not know it. No complex calculations are required. So be with an idea, you have to attempt all the questions of idioms. Likewise, they're time saver. Bank time here to spend on complex reading comprehension and passages. So, bank as in if you collect time, if you save time here doing the questions of the idiom and phrases, probably you will save a lot of time. Then occurs regularly as direct meaning in the fill in the blanks and statement corrections. Not necessary. You would get questions of idioms as in the question followed by 4 options. They could be in the passages. They could be in the fill in the blanks. They could be given in the phrasal verbs. Phrases could be XYZ form. But of course, your approach has to be very same for that. Then moving on to let's decode something else. So likewise, sometimes that is what I'm coming again and again. Sometimes meaning could not be yield. Sometimes you have to apply your own logic to that also. Like harassed by repeated acts of injustice, he decided to put his foot down. Now, even if I was not sure, so here the idiom is to put his foot down. Let's say I never read it. I never have come across this idiom. What will I do? Then I'm going to use a bit logic of mine. How? Harassed by acts of injustice. This is my negative word, right? Injustice is also negative since a person was very frustrated and harassed by the act of injustice. He decided to put his foot down. So what does a person do when a person is very frustrated and harassed? That person tries to, take some action, to speak against it, to speak for it, to speak for himself. That is the action a person takes because of the mental pressure that a person goes through. So if that is negative, correction has to be there positive. So that is requires correction, which means like not to eat, not to go for that. So sometimes derived logically without prior memorization. He decided to अब मैं नहीं tolerate करूँगा मेरा हो गया. Likewise, now we are going to move to some thematic logs also. Thematic, when I say, see, idioms often you would have said at the drop of the hat, right? And so many are there, hit below the belt. So there are lot of idioms which are of the particular genres also. Like you often would see a lot of idioms are there which are of the animals category, lot of there which are of the colors, right? Then lot of are there which are about the justice, about the games. So we are now going to learn them in the category, the different category, like thematic log if I talk about. Now let's pick a few idioms and let's talk about the fauna and the animal kingdom one. How many are the nearby idioms we are able to get? Just like for an example, पहला idiom है a leopard can't change his spots. You often would have seen in leopards you talk about the spots. So which means you cannot change who you are. Like in zebras, strips are there, right? So whenever it is like a leopard can't change his spots, so you think कि लेपर्ड है, ऑफ कोर्स उसकी बॉडी में ऐसे स्पॉट्स होते हैं. लेपर्ड कांट चेंज इट, मतलब जो है वो इंसान नहीं बदल सकता. सो विच मीन्स यू कैन नॉट चेंज द वे यू आर, यू कैन नॉट चेंज योरसेल्फ, how you are being born. So maybe for the physical appearance, if I say that I cannot change my eyes, I cannot get that jawline, so which is of course I cannot do that. Similarly, see, this was about your animal category kingdom. Likewise, let sleeping dogs lie. Now, it is about the dogs. Abhi, you imagine if somebody comes and says, let sleeping dogs lie. Can a dog, when it is sleeping, lie? No. So, which means don't cause problems by acting when it is not necessary. जो बोलते नहीं unnecessarily क्यों प्रॉब्लम क्रिएट करना जब नहीं है. लेट द स्लीपिंग डॉग्स लाई, जो है रहने दो, unnecessary क्यों प्रॉब्लम लेके आ रहे हो. सो इफ अ dog is sleeping, he cannot wake up and lie. Anyway, dog cannot lie. So it is, do not create something that cannot happen, or that when it is not the right time for that thing to happen. Similarly, crocodile tears, I think the only animal kingdom ka idiom which we all are aware of. Crocodile tears, magarmachh ke आंसू, which means pretended or fake sorrow, right? जब भी कोई आपको fake care दिखाता है, let's say there was a friend of yours, right? Who came to you and who's like, oh bro, he started crying and is like, I really am very empathetical towards you, I have a lot of sympathy for you, I know what you're going through, really melodramatic that person was. But deep down you know that वो तो आपको पसंद भी नहीं करता, he is not a close friend of yours, वो तो आपको इतना like भी नहीं करता. So then that crying motion would be what? That crying motion would be crocodile tears. So he is pretending, but he really is not. Likewise, when pigs fly, if somebody says, oh, when pigs fly, that thing would happen. Tell me, can pigs fly? उड़ सकते हैं क्या? Pigs तो नहीं उड़ सकते. Which means you are talking about something that can really not be true. हो ही नहीं सकता. So when pigs fly would be for something that logically cannot be true. So this is not only these, lot many are there. So if there are some idioms, अभी देखो literal meaning से काफी connect कर पा रहे हैं, right? So जब भी idiom आता है, make sure that you are able to connect them with their literal meaning. चलो, let's move on to the next one. Now we are going to go for the anatomy and physicality, right? Which means, oh, that is a very sophisticated term. We could have just simply said we are going to learn the idioms about the human body, but then anatomy sounds very cool and classy. Okay, so there are a lot of idioms that are related to the human body also. Like, let's start from the mouth. It says that fight tooth and nail. Now, and similarly, you must have heard about tooth for a tooth and nail for a nail. No, eye for an eye makes the whole world blind, right? So that is also one of the idiom you can relate from this category. So, fight tooth and nail basically means to fight with one's all might, as in whatever strength and capacity you have, you are applying completely that whole capacity of yours. So you are fighting with all tooth and nail. Likewise, there is an idiom for cold shoulder. Okay, now let me give you a little extra knowledge here. So, when you are dealing with any idiom which has cold word in it, like there is an idiom called as cold fish, cold shoulder. Okay, it's a cold shoulder, cold fish, cold attitude. You must have heard people saying that. Whenever that cold word comes, so cold basically talks about less emotions, a very like thanda reaction when somebody gives. Like he's a very cold fish type of a person, which means he is not so reactive about things. He doesn't, like you probably would have seen, there are people who doesn't celebrate others when they really should. So that is what they are being cold fish. Likewise, to try to be unfriendly or taking no notice of something. So a person who is non-reactive at all is cold. So जब भी कभी idiom या vocab में cold आ जाए ना, if it's about the reaction, it will relate you to something about a person who is not giving reactions about things, or a person who's being very unattentive about things, right? And इसका opposite हो जाएगा. It could be your warm. Warm is just opposite of cold. Or if I go for like hot, right? So just opposite हो जाएगा इसका. Similarly, we are done with tooth and nail. We are done with the shoulder. Coming to the hand. Okay. It says that to take their heels or cool his heels. Both are similar to your heels only. अभी देखो. So they basically relate you to take to flight or run away. So that is what to take to their heels basically means. To wait fruitlessly at the cost of one's dignity. अभी देखो. To take to their heels means you're taking somebody's heels and you're running away, right? So you're doing what? You are basically taking the flight or you're running away. Likewise, cool his heels means to wait fruitlessly at the act of one's dignity. आपको पता है that there's not going to be any output. You know that it is not going to be beneficial, but then too you are waiting for it. Likewise, the bare bones. Now, the bare bones are basically the main point or naked truth. Bare, आपने सुना ना bare anatomy. So bare word is basically for uncovered, for the real. So it is for the main point or the naked truth. As in, when you talk about the truth which is not fabricated at all, it's called as your naked truth. Okay. Likewise, now moving on to your wealth, fortune, disaster and all. अभी देखो. We are done with humans. We are done with the body. Now we are going to move to money. Okay. So wealth, fortune and disaster. Now it says rolling in money. Now you imagine. It is a literal meaning wala idiom. There is somebody who is rolling in money, which means every time he rolls, he gets more and more money. So a person who's very rich is called to be rolling in money. Likewise, born with a silver spoon. Now imagine, when and in what situation do you use that? A person who's born with a silver spoon, usually हम steel की spoon use करते हैं, but a person who's very rich, privileged, uses the silver spoon, right? Tanya Mittal, if you are a little mean person, you can relate Tanya Mittal. So in that case, it should be born into a very rich family, wealthy family, or let's say privileged family. Likewise, strike gold. Now, you imagine, when do you say strike gold? So it should be uncover or find a valuable line of information or argument. Suddenly, you were talking to somebody, it was a very bland and a plain conversation. Suddenly, you strike gold. As in, you discover something which is very important or which is not like informative to you. So you basically have done what? You have strike gold. You have gotten a very valuable information for yourself. Likely, itching palm. I think ये तो सुना होगा ना, लोग बोलते हैं itching palm. So that is what? to be greedy or open to bribes, right? Eating palms की जगह there's also called as greasing palms, right? To grease somebody's palm or under the table भी इसके लिए एक आपके पास idiom जाता है. So जब भी आपको लगता है that somebody is accepting the bribe or somebody is giving it, so you are giving something under the table. So under the table means what? Under the table means unofficially, right? Illegally when you do something, that is called as under the table. Likewise, if I say grease somebody's palm, so greasing somebody's palm means that you are getting that work done indirectly. आपको काम कराना था, आपको काम चाहिए था, बट लीगली नहीं हो रहा था, तो ये ग्रीस somebody's palm, कुछ आपने पैसे दे दिए, right? Similarly, eating palm. So eating palm has two meanings. The one meaning of it is open to bribes, or it is like very greedy. You would have seen ना, कुछ तो लेना पड़ेगा पुलिस वाले, अगर आपने मूवीज या फिर बहुत सारे shows नेटफ्लिक्स की वेब सीरीज देखी हैं. So when a person like a police or somebody wants something, just like साहब हाथों में कुछ लियोरी, कुछ तो आपको देना पड़ेगा. That's eating palm. Then likewise, go to pigs and dogs. Now, imagine, why would you go to pigs and dogs? Is there any, I would say, is there any situation, a normal situation, when you'll go to pigs and dogs? No. So which means to be ruined completely. So when you are not left with any choice, not even a single choice, that is the only situation where you will go to pigs and dogs. So you're ruined completely. Chalo guys, so we were done with the wealth, the money one. Now we are going to move to thematic law of your conflict and resolution. Now conflict and resolution में क्या क्या आता है? So these are two different ones. One is of the conflict, another is of your resolution. Let's talk about the first one. So that says bad blood. Now, when and in what situation do you say bad blood? So bad blood is basically ill feelings or historical enmity between two groups. You probably would have seen this during your, let's say, when you watch some typical purane Bollywood movies. So if you have done that, you would see that there are two brothers who have a lot of wealth of their fathers, and they have got conflict with each other. Who will get what share of the money or what share of the property? They are fighting about that. So that conflict is called as what? A bad blood. Likewise, join issue with. Now, joint issue with is to actively fight or challenge somebody. That is joining issue with. You are fighting with somebody. You are challenging someone. Similarly, spill the beans. Now, spill the beans, you would have seen, oh, why are you hiding that? Come on, spill the beans. So, spill the beans is basically not to hide the truth, to reveal it. So, which means to blurt out the truth, often causing conflict. So, that is spilling the beans. So, you have to speak what is there. Likewise, achieving resolution. So, that was about the conflict. Now, it's about the resolution. It says, bury the hatchet. Very important one, has been there many times in the exam. So that is your to settle old enmity and start afresh. Bury means what? So you are like, okay, okay, whatever is there, let's settle it down. Let's make up things. जो भी है भूल जाओ. So you are just burying the hatchet. Hatchet is basically the bad ideas, the feud, I would say, between two people, that ladai jhagda and all when you talk about. Then similarly, draw a veil over. Now, अगर आपको इसका मतलब नहीं भी मालूम, you can get the meaning of it by the word veil. What is veil, guys? So veil is that parda, that cover you use. So put a veil over means to cover that. Simple. ये normal logic था अगर आपको वो क्या बात है. Like to forget the past and cover up the prior incident, as in जो पुरानी बातें हैं, past की बातें हैं, since they are not so important, so let's forget them and let's focus upon the present things, the important things which are there now. Likewise, okay, now moving on to the state of mind and behavior. So अभी इनसे कौन-कौन सी idioms? So I'm just giving you an idea, guys, that this is how idioms can be, and that is how you are supposed to deal with the idioms. Like we have The first one that says at the drop of the hat. Now, you imagine at the drop of the hat. So I would say you have to do something at the drop of the hat, which means you have to do something immediately. तुरंत करना है आप, right? So willing to do something immediately without thinking is drop of the hat. Likewise, so that was easy. Now, if I took that was volatile. Volatile means something that changes very frequently. Rational. So rational is thinking and then talking about it or giving examples or explanations of it. Like for an example, level-headed. If I say, right. So if I say that somebody is very level-headed, so level-headed would mean somebody who's very rational, a person who's very reasonable, steady, and a person who is very sensible would be what? Would be your level-headed, I think. Right? Okay, so we are done with that. Now moving on to the third one. Not playing with a full deck. Now, not playing with a full deck means what? Someone who lacks intelligence. Now you imagine if there's somebody who says, oh, I'm really not playing with a full deck. So deck is what? Cards. Cards means the power they relate to. So if somebody comes and says, I am really not playing with the full deck, would give you the meaning that that person is not playing with full potential, with full intelligence and energy. Likewise, if I go for wet blanket. So wet blanket means what? Wet blanket is basically that someone who is unsocial and does not mix and ruins the mood. So that is wet blanket. As in, you must have seen there are a lot of friends of yours who are not so social. They are not so participative. They are not there when it is the need. So that basically calls for wet blanket, which means someone who is unsocial, does not mix and ruins the mood. I hope these are clear. Again, let's recall it. अभी तक हमने बहुत सारे idioms पढ़े. Let's recall these ones. Quickly आप मेरे साथ बोलोगे. What is the meaning of at the drop of the hat? Immediately. Level-headed, somebody who is sensible and intelligent. Then, not playing with a full deck, somebody who's not playing with full potential. Wet blanket, a person who is very unsocial, not mingling type of person. Hope these idioms are clear to you. Now, moving on to the other part, guys, which is your, yes, truth and dare, deceit and truth. So now we have truth, deceit and narrative ones. Okay, so that is truth and that is deceit. So which one do we got? Both are equal, by the way. Okay, so the first one is call a spade a spade. Guys, very, very, very important for your exam. Like this is really very important. So whenever you come across this idiom, which is by the name call a spade, would mean जैसे को तैसा बोलना, जो है वो कहना. So to speak whatever it is, like which means to be outspoken in languages, speaking plainly. Likewise, if I say the bare bones, so bare bones would be the stripped down main points. अभी हमने बोला था ना, bare means the naked truth, the real, raw, without hidden things. So that is called as what? The bare bone, if I were to go for. Similarly, if I talk about the deceits, lot of them are there. Let's cover them one by one. Like, if I go for tall stories. So, what is tall stories? Exaggerated and impossible stories. Now, if I say that, I did not go anywhere for the trip. But if I say, oh, I went there, I saw this, I saw that, the ambience was so good, the weather, I'm just exaggerating things which really are not so true. So anything like that falls under the category of tall stories. So exaggerated and impossible stories. Likewise, devil's advocate, right? So you are in devil's advocate. Now think, if you are devil's advocate, how and what would you be? You will be very exaggerated, taking a position. Since you are devil's advocate, you will take the privilege of it. You will exaggerate the matter, even if that is not true. Likewise, if I talk about, so devil's advocate, we're done. which means taking a position for the sake of argument without believing it. So you are advocating devil. Similarly, pot calling the kettle black. Now, that means criticizing another for a fault you yourself processed. So, pot calling a kettle black would be what? Pot, like, galti uski thi, but you are putting that mistake of yours upon someone else's shoulder. So, that is what? Pot calling the kettle black. I hope these are done for you. Now, I'm going to take you through again these idioms. Like if I say, call a spade, which means what is there to be outspoken. To say what is the real truth. Bare bones would be your basically kind of, you can say, the main point. Uncovered, tall stories, exaggerated or unnecessary stories. Then we have devil's advocate, which is basically doing something or taking an argument just for the sake of winning it, is devil's advocate. Pot calling the kettle black, गलती आपकी है, but आप उसकी जिम्मेदारी किसी और को दे रहे हो. So that is what your pot calling the kettle black really means. Oh, these are done, right? And then there's one more idiom you probably would have heard about. We say, think of the devil and devil is here. So that is not the real devil, which means when you think of the person and the person is just right before you, the person comes and appears just right before you. So that is what think of the devil and devil arrives. Likewise, now we have some core lexical idioms also. What are lexical idioms? See, lexical idioms basically are when we talk about the vocabulary. Like there are lot of idioms which are not a one-liner or in a phrase. They are in the form of vocabulary. So then in that case, we should know the meaning of the vocabulary which is given. For an example, bizarre. If you probably would have heard people saying it's a total bizarre. So what does bizarre mean? Bizarre means odd in shape or appearance, something that is not good looking. It's like total disaster. That's what bizarre. Oh, it's a bizarre thing to do, which means it is like a very odd thing to do, unacceptable, not liking. So bizarre gives you that sense. So odd in shape or in manner, I would say. Similarly, there is a word called as microcosm. Now, if the word comes before you, microcosm, so what does that mean? So microcosm is basically a very small sample. How you could have understood this? You could have understood it by the word micro. Now, micro means very small, so that is micro for you. So a very small sample is microcosm. Likewise, you have paradox. Okay. Now, beta, often you would have heard people saying, oh, you really are living in paradox, or it's a paradoxical thing. So when and in what situation people say paradox? Paradox का मतलब होता है when a person lives just, it's a self-contrasting thing. Right. If I say I have one rule that I don't have any rule. Now, at one place I am saying I have one rule, फिर उसी को contradict करके बोल दिया that I do not have any rule. So जो part होता है जब आप उसको self contradict कर देते हो, that becomes your paradox. Like if you have watched that Stranger Things in the Netflix, you probably can relate to that. So in season 2 Stranger Things, it was like it is the beginning of the end. At one place you are like it is the beginning, at another place you are like of the end. So beginning and end are what? They are self-contradictory to each other. So when self-contradiction happens, that is paradox. So even in reality, when you tell a person that bro, you are living in total paradox, as in then in that case you are trying to say that you are living in the state which is just opposite of the reality. Right. Then we have the word called as pulchritude. Now, like if I say that Kashmir is really a very pulchritudinous place. So I am trying to say that the Kashmir is very beautiful, or anything that I see seems or appears to me very beautiful, very enchanting, would then in that case would be what? It would be your pulchritude wala case. Right. Similarly, If I take an example of the word foray, so foray is what? A short raid or advance. As in, foray is, I would say, the initial short step if taken for something, right? Or advancement in something is called as your foray. So, this is all about the core lexical vocabulary that we had, all the words that we had. Let me take you again through each and every word that we have studied, Abhi. So, the very first word for us was what? It was your bizarre. Bizarre means disaster, odd, in shape, etc. Pulchitude. What was that? You have to give me an answer of it. What is pulchitude? So, pulchitude is beauty. Likewise, what was microcosm? So, microcosm, I related you to the word micro. Small. So, that should be a very small sample of something. Likewise, we have the word called as foray. What is foray, guys? So, foray is a part of something, or I would say advancement in something, right? Similarly, there is a word given as paradox. What is paradox? Paradox is self-contrast in a situation. जो बोला just उसका opposite बोल दिया. So these are some of the idioms that you can use. So it's high level vocabulary, often sometimes serves as the context, clues needed to decode adjacent idioms in type 2 and type 3 questions. Type 2 and type 3 basically it means that the questions which are very difficult to read, right? Okay, so this was all about the idioms. Now, let me quickly give you a recap what we have studied, guys. Right. Okay. So we started from about money. We studied about anatomy. Then we studied about fauna and all. And before that, I'll just take you through the themes. Of course, this is still where we were done that idioms कुछ आप interpret खुद से कर लोगे, कुछ आप interpret नहीं भी कर पाओगे, right? So then you have to go to basically you have to do what? There are some which can be dealt with your vocabulary. So you have to be little cautious and attentive and have to have good knowledge of the words, right? Chalo, now I'm gonna take you through the way that from where we studied. It was from here. Okay. So first we studied about animals. Now I'm quickly going to take the name and you will tell me the meaning. A leopard can't change its spot. You have to just look here at me and tell me. What is a leopard can't change its spot? So that is, a person cannot change the way they are. What is crocodile tears? Lying. Idioms ही हम सीख रहे हैं. Let sleeping dogs lie. Do not create unnecessary problems when problems are not there. Then we had when pigs fly. So when pigs fly is what? Something that really cannot happen or cannot be true. Likewise, then we studied about the human anatomy. So in human's anatomy, the very first was fight with tooth and nail. Quickly, what was that? Fighting with all might and zest. Then it was give a cold shoulder, ठंडा response देना, not to be so reactive. Then what was your give to their heels? That was basically or take to their heels and pull their heels. So take to their heels is taking something and running away. Cinderella, I think if I'm not wrong, I relate to. Pull is heels is basically waiting when you know the outcome is not going to be there, but still. Then you have the bare bones. The bare bones are unhidden, the real, the naked ones. Fortune पे आते हैं. So in the fortune, we studied what is rolling money. So rolling in money is basically very rich, very wealthy. Then we had born with a silver spoon is what? Born very privileged and rich or wealthy. That's called born with a silver spoon. Similarly, striking gold. Suddenly discovering something very valuable is called as your striking gold. आपको बस मेरे साथ बोलना है, that's it. Then you have the word called as your itching palm, greasing palm. Under the table. So under the table is right pen. Then you have greasing palms, right dena. Itching palm, when a person is becoming very greedy or is in want of the money, is your greasing palm. Go to pigs and dogs. When do you go to pigs and dogs? when you basically are left with no choice and you're completely drained and gone and very negative, hopeless. That's what when you go to pigs and dogs. Now, moving on to the next one, that was about conflict and resolution. हमने इतने सारे idioms पढ़े हमें पता भी नहीं चला. Bad blood, conflict between the two groups. Then we had join issues with. So join issues with is basically to challenge somebody to for the fighting. Spill the beans to reveal the secret. Then we had bury the hatchet, let bygones be bygones. ये भी एक idiom है आपका, यानी कि जो हो गया उसको जाने दो, अभी जो important है उस पर focus करो. Then draw a veil over. Veil से आप याद रखना, to cover or to hide the issue is to draw a veil over. Then we had state of mind. In state of mind we read at the drop of the hat. So at the drop of the hat is what? Immediately. Level-headed, a person who is sensible and intelligent. Then it was not playing with a full deck. So not playing with a full deck was not playing with full zest and might. Wet blanket was basically for a person who is very what? A person who is very unsocial. Itna yaad hua? At least we have done 30-40 idioms, guys. Then it was about truth and dare. Call a spade, which means to tell the truth. To speak what the truth is. जो है वैसा बोलना उसको. Then the bare bones was basically your main point. Then we had your tall stories. So tall stories is basically something that is not exaggerated, not really the truth. Then we had devil's advocate, a person who takes sometimes the decisions or is on a part for one's own benefit. Then pot calling the kettle black is basically when a person is at fault but puts the blame upon someone else's shoulder. That's pot calling the kettle black. Then we had about the last one, which was vocabulary. So there could be one, like if I say it's a total bizarre, it's a total disaster, failure, odd thing. If I say it's really multitude in nature, so which means I'm talking about something which is very beautiful. Or if I say I just need a microcosm, so which means a very small part or sample of something. Likewise, if I say paradox, so I'm trying to say just the opposite. Self-contradictory when I talk about is your paradox. Okay, now here are the questions, guys. The very first question is going to come before you. Now, you have to read it and tell me what would be the answer and why. Let me know, guys, once you're done. Okay. So the very first question was, the authorities took him to task for his negligence, gave him additional work, suspended his assignment, reprimanded him, forced him to resign. Now, what that could be? So that would be your C. Took him to task for his negligence is like डांटना, किसी class लगाना, and that is called as reprimanding. Similarly, okay, how about this one, guys? I'm sure they will fight tooth and nail for their rights. We just did it. We did tooth and nail, if you remember that. Now you tell me. With all their might, without any proper weapon, resort to violence, are cowards. Cowards is basically when you talk about a person who is very incompetent, person is like the poke shot off. Now, tooth and nails, we just did it, which meant with all their might. So when I say that a person fought with all his tooth and nails, which means I'm trying to say that person fought with all his might. Likewise, third question of ours is this. tada! आ गया question आपके सामने, बताइए. The detective left no stone unturned to trace the culprit. You can even get a literal meaning if you do not know the answer of the question. What that could be. So, it says, the detective left no stone unturned to trace the culprit. It means took no pains, did every irrelevant things, resorted to illegitimate practices, used all available means. Now, लेफ्ट नो स्टोन अनटर्न का मतलब होता है इंसान ने कोई भी लाइक अ पर्सन ट्राइड एवरीथिंग दैट ही कुड हैव डन, सो व्हिच इज बेसिकली यूज्ड ऑल अवेलेबल मीन्स नो स्टोन अनटर्न, आपने सारे स्टोन्स को टर्न करके देखा, इज देयर समथिंग दैट कुड बी ऑफ माय हेल्प, कैन इज देयर समथिंग दैट कुड हेल्प मी, so that is not leaving any stone unturned. Likewise, he was in high spirits when I met him in the restaurant. Options are: he was in a drunken state, he was very cheerful, he talked incoherently, he was deeply engrossed in thoughts. What could be he was in high spirits? Chalo, now let's see. Now, high spirits is something basically that is positive. You can get the meaning from here itself. So, when I met him in the restaurant, so when you met that person, he was in very high spirits. So, which would give you the meaning? The person was very cheerful. I'll tell you one thing, guys. From the drunken state, I got one vocabulary. Have you heard about the word called as bacchanalian? So bacchanalian is one of the vocabulary that says that talks about a person who's very drunken. Bacchanalian. Bacchanalian, if you want to relate, you can do that. Then we have the another question. Aaya nahi abhi tak? Aa gaya. Okay. Now tell me please. Harassed by repeated acts of injustice. Oh, do you remember, guys? Now get your memory back to what we have studied. We just did the very same statement. And since these questions are your PYQ, which guarantees that, of course, what we are studying here and abhi jo humne discuss kiya tha, this is your PYQ question. Options are not to yield, to give up, to accept the proposal unconditionally, or to withdraw. What is to put his foot down? What is the meaning of sentence? Okay, that means not to yield. Right? So which means he was so harassed by it, he thought that abhi mere ko nahi sehna hai, I'm gonna speak what is right. Then the next is this one. There has been a bad blood between the two communities even before the shooting. Oh, now get back again. We just studied this. Bad blood. Options are impure blood, ill feeling, bloody fights, or it should be quarrels. Quarrels will ladai jhagda ho. I think all are very similar, but there has to be one answer which should be right. That is your ill feelings, right? So it says, abhi iska reasoning aap ek bar, you try to get the reasoning. It says, there has been bad blood between the two communities before the shooting, has it? जब वो shooting start हुई ना, उससे पहले भी there was the bad blood between two people, so which means they had ill feelings, bad feelings for each other. Then we have question. नहीं आया, आ गया. Then it says, he acts so much like his father, truly. He is a chip of the old block. Guys, mark this very important. This has been there in the PYQ questions many times. Now the options are outdated in mannerisms, very similar to his father, a good actor, an honorable man. What could that be? Tell me. A chip of the old block? Very easy it is. If you just apply a little logic of yours. What is that? Take your time, but you have to answer it. Let's see. That should be B, which is very similar to his father. So he's a chip of the old block means he is very similar to his father. Then moving on to the next one. Do not imagine that Dharmendra is really sorry that his wife died. Those are only crocodile tears, guys. We just did it. Right? Crocodile tears. If you remember, we have just done it. Now, what does that mean? Quickly. So, it is pretending sorrow, or is it tears of crocodile? Of course, you can eliminate that. They are just the tears of the crocodile. That should not be. Then it says that weeping crocodile, or is that just the mild regret? Of course, crocodile when we studied was for something that is not real. So that should be your pretending sorrow. Similarly, There is the another question which is before you. ये रहा. He stuck several bad patches before he made good. Now, came across bad soil, had a bad time, went through many illness, had many professional difficulties. What should this be? Take your time and answer me. I need answers from all of you. Quickly, guys. Hello. Jaldi, you can answer it, guys. I think. Now let's see what does stuck several bad patches mean. So stuck several bad patches means had many professional difficulties. Now you could have easily guessed it. How? Bad patches. So, अच्छा किया उससे पहले he had some bad experiences. Then we have another question that says Mohan always keeps to himself. So, which is he is too busy, is selfish, is unsociable, social, and then does not take sides. So, keeps to himself would basically अपने आप चला गया guys. वापस बुलाना पड़ेगा. Okay, it is back again. So I forgot that the answer is given. It is keeps to himself. बोलते हैं अपने तक रखना. A person who is very conserved is what? A person who is very conserved is unsocial. Then we have the question as he never liked the idea of keeping his wife under thumb, and so he let her do what she liked. Now you imagine, when do you keep things under thumb? Just get that idea and answer आपके सामने. Press down. Do you think होना चाहिए? Then unduly under control. Below his thumb. Now think below his thumb. Wife की बात कर रहा हूँ. Then under tyrannical conditions. Tyrannical are basically the challenging conditions we talk about. So it should be your B. That he never liked the idea of keeping his wife under thumb, which means under the control. So he allowed his wife to do whatever she wants. Then the next question is, it is no longer easy to strike gold. I think we did this just now. Remember that? Now I cannot do that meme caption. Like strike gold in Shakespeare's research, since much work has already been done on him. Hit a golden spot, come across gold, find something useful or valuable, uncover or find a valuable line of argument or information. So that should be your C word. To find something useful or valuable. Okay guys, 1, 2, 3. Question. Do it. That says you cannot have your cake and eat it too. थोड़ा सा दिल पे लग रहा है. People can order our cake from the Zomato. We can eat it by ourselves also if we go according to the logic, what the logic says. Enjoy forever. Have your say both ways. Run away from responsibilities or absolve yourself of guilt. What that should be. Okay, now let's see. Have your cake and eat it too is basically have your both ways, है ना? As in, खुद से it's not like कि cake आया खा लिया. It is not literal meaning. Do you remember हमने एक OP condition पढ़ा था? कुछ relation नहीं है, but answer है same thing. Then we have the next one. It says you have to be a cool customer and be patient if you want to get the best buys. Be calm. Have a hot head. Be communicative. Be choosy. So that should be you have to be a cool customer. What is that cool customer? Now let's see. So you have to be a cool customer and be patient if you want to get the best buys. So which means कहीं ना कहीं patience से related तो बात हो रही है. Patience की बात होगी तो hot headed ये सारे negative है, so नहीं होगा. It should be you should be calm if you want to have the best buys, the best things in the market. Okay guys, moving on to the next one. How about 15th one? What are your views upon it? Thoughts upon it? It says, in his youth, he was practically rolling. Oh guys, do you remember that? We did this. The very same idiom we have done it. Rolling in money. What does this mean? Tell me, what is rolling in money? Spending more than his income, borrowing money, literally or liberally, very rich, or wasting a lot of money. What does that mean? A person who's rolling in money. अभी मैंने आपको बताया था. Imagine करो if there's a person who is rolling in money. Would give you the meaning of what? Money में roll करना. So that should basically be your a person who's very rich. Then we have pick 16th one. Noble has a checkered career since I first knew him as an officer assistant in the insurance company. Now, checkered career is what? Career marked by fluctuation of fortunes, career which helped him make a lot of money, career where he signed a lot of checks, did no jobs. So what is your checkered career? That should be. Now you just try to figure out the sense first from the sentence. He has a checkered career since I first know him as in the insurance company. So which means that he has a lot of fluctuation. कि मैं पहले उसको उस कंपनी से जानती हूँ, then via. Okay, coming to the 17th one, it says हमारा क्वेश्चन गाइस फिर गायब हो गया. चाहता है हमें इसको बुलाना पड़े बार बार. जब स्लाइड चेंज हो रही है, नया क्वेश्चन नहीं आ रहा है, so हमें बुलाना पड़ेगा. क्वेश्चन किधर हो आप? देखो. So it says Veena has bitten more than she can chew. By the way, this is very important. Do learn it by heart. It says is trying to do too much, is very greedy, is always hungry, has little regard for others. What does that mean? Tell me. What is your bitten off more than one can chew? Abhi, I think you can get an idea very easily from there that that person tried things more than he can or she can accumulate, more than he or she could have digested. जितना आप चबा नहीं सकते उससे ज़्यादा आपने खा लिया. If I were to go for an answer, that should be is trying to do much. Let's say my capacity is to do two works together, but I'm like नहीं, ये भी होगा, ये भी हो जाएगा, ये भी हो जाएगा, ये भी हो जाएगा. So I'm trying to bit off more than I can chew. Then I felt. Oh, by the way, this is not one. This is I felt that it was a tall order to expect Kanchan to go home at 12 in the night. Do you remember, guys? पढ़ा हुआ आया है 12 और tall order. अभी हमने पढ़ा था. Difficult, expect too much. Customary, simple. I think you all can do that. Now you probably you people have become pros in that. Okay, let's see that now. It should be your too much. Do you remember I gave you an example of Kashmir, a person going to Kashmir and then describing the beauty of Kashmir. So that is what? A tall order basically. Then we have this one. Where is the question? Okay, it came on time. Now it says, Rini, I thought it's Rani, might scream blue murders. Yes, read it. Whenever we look into this question with this suspiciousness, why there is a medium that comes which is very important for your exam. Like again, if you search your PYQ papers, you will find blue murder बहुत बार exam में आया है. Like umpteen times it has been there. Okay, so it says that Rini might scream blue murders, but I feel Anita should get a promotion since she is better qualified for the job. That someone has been murdered with some blue liquid. Someone is being murdered and has become blue. Blue murder is a type of murder. Make a great deal of noise and object vehemently, as in like very ferociously you are objecting to something. So that should be your D1, which means to make a great deal of noise and objecting vehemently. So उसको लग रहा है हमें promotion उसको देना चाहिए, but नहीं. Since other candidate is more deserving, we would give promotion to that person first. Then we have 20th. Some kids get a kick from smoking cigarettes as a gesture of. अभी देखो cigarette बोला है, like yeah, it's a bad thing, guys. as a gesture of revolt against adult domination. So get a kick is basically, I think this you all know, bro. मेरे को तो इससे kick मिलती है. Now I get kicked from this. So Gen Z people can relate to that. Are kicked for get a thrill will make sense. Get a ball are punished. So I think now the answer is very clear to us. That should be the. And I hope इधर तक किसी को कुछ doubt नहीं होगा. You are not screaming blue murders, guys. Then we have the next one. Okay, let's on the count of three. 1, 2, 3. It's there on time. Okay, now try doing them. So you have to complete these idioms. Look before you what? Jump, plunge, take the plunge, leap. पहले तो you are going to tell me what is the meaning of the word plunge. Take your time. Answer this to me. I hope you are done with that, guys. Answer मिल गया. I think ये आपने स्कूल में पढ़ा होगा since you. That is why you probably would be aware of the meaning of the word. Okay. So it says that plunge is basically falling very suddenly. Oh, we read it, Abhi. At the drop of the hat, plunge. So now look before you leap. That is an idiom. Then, and also, of course, we have to discuss the meaning of the idiom also. So it means to be careful before taking any decision. Leap is like kind of like taking a turn, rolling in. So let's say you are somewhere and you are taking a turn. So you have to see before taking turn. Is that safe? I hope there's not something that might hurt me. So let's look before you move. Similarly, 22nd, strike while the iron is what? Thoda marna. Now I think this is very easy. When should you strike the iron? When it is very cold, cool, ठंडा iron है, तो you do anything, nothing is, no impact is going to be there. Warm or hot? So when the iron is very hot and then if you strike it with a hammer, that shape whichever you want comes. So it should be your hot. It means to make use of the opportunity. So to change. Why to strike on the hot iron? As in, there is some situation where you think if you do this thing, the change can be there. Like, you can get a change. So as in, you have to take the advantage of the opportunity which is there. Now, then we have this one. Where is the idiom? Okay. Early bird catches the dash. Early bird does what? Worm, germ, jelly, jam. What does the early bird catch? Now you think. Does early bird catch a jam? Jam to be hona chahiye. Okay, let's see that. Load. It should be early bird catches the worm. Anything. It basically relates that if something is done before the time, it might get infected, rotten. That is early bird. So it means to take advantage and to do something before anyone else does it, right? So you have to warn. And early bird catches the worm. My bad. I was trying to explain you. I went somewhere else, by the way. So it basically gives you the meaning that if you are an early bird, I'm not like, oh, you are an early bird, मतलब जल्दी उठते हो. So whenever you say early bird, time से पहले काम करने बोलते हो. So let's say कोई predator है, किसी को शिकारी है, कुछ पकड़ना है. So if this early bird, बहुत सारे और birds हैं, worm खाने के लिए तो उसी को मिलेगा ना, तो सबसे पहले जाएगी. So it's early bird. Then we have 24th. I think बचपन से एक ही इडियम पढ़ते हुए अब आ रहे हो जो आपको याद होता है सबसे ज्यादा. Every cloud has a silver line, lining, statue, or border. So it's lining, which is B. Every cloud has a silver lining, as in, it means that there is light at the end of the tunnel. A negative occurrence may have a positive aspect to it. So silver lining, which means cloud ke na baad mein. So it basically signifies that whatever happens, you should not be so sad and very negative about it, because whatever negative happens after that, for sure कुछ तो अच्छा होगा. हर बुरी चीज के बाद अच्छी चीज होती है, So good and bad come together. So then you have this one. Do this question, guys, and tell me what should be the answer of this. Okay, I hope you would have done it. Now, moving on to the another one. Okay, that says to be born with a silver dash in the dash. So to be born with what? to be born with silver bowl, spoon, or plate? What it should be? So it should all be that to be born with a silver spoon in the mouth. Of course, that spoon is to be in the mouth. Then we have 26, to grease someone's dash. So you are greasing what? You are greasing someone's palm. We just did that. Right, guys? Okay. Now moving on to the next one, which is your question. Aa jao. Aa gaya. It says to join dash with issues, battle, war, hands with. I think you must have read this when treaty and all happens. So it should be to join battle with. So which means अभी हमने ये पढ़ा भी था. हाँ, you remember that, guys? We did it. Which means to join hands with means to fight somebody, to challenge. Okay, bro, I'm ready for the fight. Now we can begin. Okay, then we have the next one, 30th. To go to pigs and dash. So it should be to go to pigs and dogs. We just guys, this is not done. It should be to go to pigs and dogs. We read it abhi, right? Then we have the another one, which is your to take leave of one's dash. So that should be to take leaves of one's senses, jobs, faculties, families. What it should be? बताओ भाई क्या होगा इसका आंसर? Okay, that says now to take leave of one's basically senses, which means it means to lose control, to lose your good judgment. Then the next question for us is this one. It says to have an itching dash, to have an itching palm, hand, back, ear. What is that? So it should be to have an itching palm would be the correct one. Okay, I think itching palm we did, guys. We should remember that. Okay, then the next one is, so we have to do a few more questions. They say that continuous interrogation finally made the man spill the beans and the disaster was averted. What is that? So, spill the beans we did to let the secret out, to spill what is there. Such bata dena. But blurt the truth, to give information. Scatter the beans nahi tha, scatter the truth nahi tha. That was to scatter, to give information. Similarly, now that the prices have risen so much, it is better to go Dutch while having a party. To go Dutch is basically, आपने कभी देखा है जब आप खाना खाने कहीं बाहर जाते हो, so you Dutch the bills. So what do? You spill the bills basically, right? So which means go whole it, where it should be each person should pay his own share of expenses. So that is what your Dutch the bill means. Then third one, okay, it says that, guys, since Spencer can be boring, teaching his works is not every lecturer's cup of tea, which means हर किसी के बस की बात नहीं है. So, what one likes can do well. Refreshing, boring, routine work नहीं होगा. Something that most people do not like. So, it should be what one's like, one can do that. Fourth one, smuggling can get you easy money and it may also easily put you in jail. It's an easy money. Meme you must have heard. So money to make someone lazy, of course not. जो बहुत आसानी से मिल जाता है ना, that is called as your easy money. Then money which can be easily spent, money gained after very little work, money earned from smuggling. It should be which can be after very little work. थोड़ा सा किया पैसे मिल गए. Then fifth one. Though Rahul tries to be humorous, most of his jokes fall flat. He tries to be humorous and make people laugh, but he fails to do that. Means fall to the ground, get flattered, do not have the expected effects, which are very effective. Of course, not this. It should be C1. They do not have that effect what he thinks could have upon the people. Like, they do not make people laugh the much. He thinks, मेरे jokes बहुत अच्छे हैं, मजा आएगा. I hope I'm not being too mean, or I'm not sounding like that. Okay, so do we have next question? Yes, we do have that. It says that You may rush from pillar to post, but you have no chance in getting what you want without a bribe. To be very busy, rush in all directions, suffer much harassment, to go all posts and boxes, to go to many offices. Okay, आंसर आ गया हमारे पास. Pillar and post, by the way, exams में बहुत बार आया है, which means rush in all directions and suffering much harassment. That is your pillar to post. Then, I hope to be full of beans tomorrow, since I'm planning to go to bed early tonight. Full of energy and good spirit. Of course, positive है, पूरा sentence का sense ही positive है. Full of beans of cooking. Low on energy. It should be A or D. So it should be A. You hope to be full of beans. You hope to, when you wake up, you're very khush and enjoying. 8-1. She is too fond of her creature comforts to take the trouble to go on the long train journey. Be a comfortable creature, comfortable pets, amenities which provide the day-to-day physical needs, or home. So that should be your C. Creature comforts relates you to comfort, which is amenities which provide day-to-day physical needs, is your creature comfort. Then we have the 8th question. Ajo bhai, aa gaya. Then it says, the presence of the principal crammed the style of the teacher's lecture. Style suffered from cramps, obstructed the style, prevented the freestyle, prevented from him from doing freely what he had planned to do. So that would be your what? Crammed the style, okay, is basically your, something is happening. Something has happened. Oh, we have got the answer. Okay, anyway. So cram the style is basically prevented the style. Then he has not quite the prodigal son, returning since he bought him with a lot of fun. Prodigal son after 12th में story भी पढ़ी होगी. So which means a person who is very extravagant, as in a person who spends a lot, is a prodigal son. Moving on to the next one. Okay. Do you remember we studied a few idioms which were by the name of vocabulary? They are those. Catamaran. So catamaran is basically what is that? A type of boat, type of cannon, Jewish place of worship, Zoroastrian place of worship. So catamaran is basically a type of boat. Vocabulary yaad. So if a person says that I'm in a catamaran, so which means a person is trying to say that he is in some sort of boat. Wait guys, we studied this. Microcosm. A very big sample. Do you remember micro, small? So it should be B1 for this. Okay. With answer, we have another question. So if you remember, we studied paradox also. So paradox is embarrassing or humiliating, churlish, self-contradictory but truth. Charlatan. So अभी मैंने आपको बताया था that paradox इधर भी आता है. So paradox is basically self-contrasting. और self-contrasting जाएगा. So it should be C. Now, once we are done with this, do we have another question, guys? We do have that. Discredit. I think ये credit से आप relate कर सकते हो. Credit means something that has value. This is negative. Make an account, withdraw money, damage reputation or praise a person. So जो आप options eliminate कर सकते हो वो है D. It should be withdraw. Discredit कर. Credit is पैसा आना. Discredit is जाना. Then we have foray. We read this foray. A short raid or make advances, or that could be your build a road, have an appetizer. So foray is basically a short raid. Remember that for a shorter period of time. Okay, then we have the question called as impart, which is satisfying oneself, be invisible, to give or bestow, be partial. So that should be your C1, to give or bestow. That's called imparting. Like you often would have heard people saying, you impart knowledge, so you give knowledge. Okay, guys. So that's it. It is looking lovely and giving a good vibe. So, guys, here we are done with our idiom and phrases per session. Whole session. I hope you have liked it. It would have been fun to study with me all together as a family. We studied. And now in the next session, we'll meet again. Till then, take care of yourself. Goodbye. Keep studying, keep practicing, and make sure that you practice a lot of questions of every topic that we study in the class. Till then, see you soon. Bye bye.